I'm going to try and summarise My Last Duchess in the simplest way possible for you, because I actually studied this poem at GCSE and I remember it being amazing once I understood it, but before that I just had no clue what it's about because it's very old and it uses really old language and it's just full of references to things I didn't understand. So yeah, let me try and unpack that as quickly as I can. So the first thing that we're doing is we're looking at a picture, a painting on the wall of a duchess, of a lady, and you can imagine it sort of looking something like this, probably a little bit more Italian Renaissance. This one's more kind of Englishy, Western looking, maybe American or English, I think, this portrait. But yeah, a beautiful lady, a portrait of her, a painting of her on the wall, an Italian Renaissance type painting. The setting is Ferrara, so this is a sort of province in Italy. And the speaker of this poem is the Duke of Ferrara. He's the person who rules this entire province. At the time, which is the Renaissance, the whole country of Italy was not a thing, so Ferrara was its own separate province, Venice was its own province, Florence was its own province, so every sort of state in Italy that exists now was actually just its own country almost. So it's kind of like the Duke is a king almost. He has so much power in his world that he is able to act with impunity. He can do whatever he wants in this world. And what he wants to do is show this envoy, this messenger, around an art gallery, which is really mad why he would bother to speak to such a lowly messenger person for so long about high art. And as you read through the poem, the reason why he wants to do this becomes a bit more apparent. So the first thing we realise is that we're looking at a painting on the wall of an art gallery, and it's by a famous painter called Fra Pandolf. This is sort of the type of name that old Italian Renaissance painters have. So it's not just a really beautiful painting, it's very expensive by a very famous artist. So this Duke is really, selling himself. He's saying to the messenger how expensive his art collection is, how amazing his paintings are, and how he can personally afford to commission them. So he's paid this guy to paint something that is very personal to him, which is a picture of his own wife, his Duchess. And so it starts and it looks like a very beautiful painting on the wall, and that's fine. Then what happens is we start to realise something is really wrong, something is strange about this situation. He starts talking about how beautiful and deep and passionate her glance is, her look. And then he thinks about how did she look so passionate and so lifelike if it was just this painter talking to her. And we get the feeling that the Duke feels, actually, I wanted her to look like that at me and only me. I wanted her to look that beautiful and that attractive and that deep and passionate only when she was looking at me. I can't believe that she looked at the painter that way. And then he starts confessing all of this crazy stuff to the envoy and saying things like, well, it wasn't her husband's presence only that called that spot of joy into her cheek. Her face flushed, which means it kind of filled with joy, it filled with perhaps flirtation, perhaps embarrassment, perhaps all kinds of things. But she had these kind of intense, strong emotions, like rippling emotions, not only when she looked at the Duke, but when she looked at other random people too, including probably this painter and including all these other people who went round the court giving her tons of presents. So yeah, on the one hand, this is a beautiful, really lifelike painting. On the other hand, it just immediately incites this jealousy in the Duke, thinking, why on earth did she look like that when she was only looking at this painter? She should only look like that with me. And so he becomes possessive, he becomes jealous, he becomes kind of paranoid and maniacal. And because he's the Duke of Ferrara, he has so much power. He exercises this power over her, and we learn that in the second part of the poem. So we learn her heart was too soon made glad. We've no idea if this is real or if this is just his paranoid delusion, but she was easily impressed by everything, according to the Duke. She was too easily impressed. And his favour, his attention, The daylight in the west, the bough of cherries an idiot broke in the orchard for her, a white horse that she rode with. Everything made her equally happy. And he wants to be the only thing that makes her this happy. He doesn't want her to be happy in any other way, not by looking at a sunset, not by riding her white horse, and definitely not by accepting a load of cherries off a fool, which is a suggestion that there are other people around maybe giving her love tokens. Again, we don't know if this is paranoid or not, but I assume he's quite paranoid. But yeah, basically, he's jealous because she's a happy person and she is very energetic and very passionate, and he feels like all of that passion should only be directed towards him. And as soon as it is she gives attention to anything that's not him, he becomes uncontrollably jealous and needs to assert his dominance and his power over her. So then what happens is he views his gift of a 900 years old name. So he's from a very rich family that goes back a long time, and they have always been in charge of Ferrara. And he thinks, I've given you this gift of the name. I've married you and you've become the Duchess of Ferrara. You're basically queen of this land. Why is that worse than the cherries or the horse or the sunset or anything else that you're giving your attention to? He just feels so out of control and so intimidated by that he basically can't stand it. And so what he says is, I would ideally have just told her what things I'm displeased by, like here you miss or there exceed the mark or this disgusts me about you. But actually, that would have been stooping to her level, and I don't stoop to anyone's level. I'm the Duke. So instead of that, I gave commands, and all smiles stopped together. Really chilling line. If you're analysing this poem, you can call it a volta, which means a turning point. So I gave commands. I told people to make this stop, and all of her smiling stopped. It's a euphemistic, loaded term that suggests that she was killed, and he was the one who commanded that killing. He didn't do it himself, notice. And then he starts talking to the envoy again and says, well, you may as well get up now. We've seen this painting. Let's go back down to your master, the count. And we realise that actually the reason he's talking to this messenger is that there's a count downstairs who has a daughter, and the daughter is going to be the new wife, the new Duchess. So it's about the old Duchess and the new Duchess who's being replaced, and this messenger is being warned. So it's a kind of secret, veiled threat that the Duke is giving to this envoy, which is why he's bothering to talk to him. He's saying, the last Duchess didn't behave. I gave commands. She's dead, and she's just now a painting in my gallery. You better make sure that this new wife that I've got is not going to be that. This is really interesting, where he says that, his daughter is my object, the way that he objectifies and views women as possessions similar to pieces of art. And then on the way out of the art gallery, he says, oh yeah, just notice this as well, though, this statue of Neptune taming a seahorse. This other sculptor cast it in bronze for me. So again, he's just casually alluding to the other really powerful sculptures that he has, or pieces of art that he's collected. Also, there's a little bit of a loaded kind of metaphor in there, because when people collect art, the art reflects their personality, and this is a god, Neptune, god of the sea, taming a seahorse. So there's something very powerful about the god and very weak about the seahorse, and there's a sort of portrayal of dominance or interplay of dominance going on there as well, so it's symbolic. So yeah, that's the poem as quick as I can do it, in a way that still respects the complexity of it. Hopefully it makes a lot more sense to you. Hopefully you find it interesting. I find it so fascinating, this poem. Browning is a master of what we call dramatic monologues, so just in case you're wondering, he's not a psychopath. He likes writing characters, especially ones that have strange and unusual psychologies, including violent tendencies and psychopathy and that kind of thing. So Browning's not evil, but he's interested in violence and evil and so on. This is a speech from a character, and we call this a dramatic monologue. So yeah, hopefully that was useful, and hopefully you enjoyed it too and you like this poem, because I think it's probably one of my favourite poems ever. And yeah, thank you very much for listening. This is from one of our Scribbly revision guides, so I'll put a link to the full guide below the video if you feel like it'd be useful for you, and you can go to scribbly.com if you want the full Power and Conflict Poetry revision course or the EdXL IGCSE Anthology revision course that we have there as well. Yeah, thank you very much for listening, and see you guys soon.